I work with pieces of wood that are ready to be thrown away, but in the next few minutes I will make this into a lamp, smoked, polished, built by hand, and ready to elevate its surroundings. And the final result is not what you expect. This wood came from an old decorative beam. It's heavy, with layers of paint and full of marks. At first glance, it does not look like much, but that's the thing about wood pieces like this. It already has a story, the cracks, the texture, the imperfections. And I am not trying to hide them. I want to use them. So the first step is cutting it down, not into perfect shapes, just into pieces that feel right. Here I am not chasing precision. I'm trying to keep the raw character. Because sometimes when you stop forcing perfection, the design actually becomes better. Using the machine for sanding just to smooth out the sharp edges, never too much. I don't want to erase the texture, I just want to make it usable. Let the tools do their work, but do not damage the material. Soon I could feel the difference. It is still rough, but not aggressive anymore. This texture will become part of the story. The goal is somewhere in between too smooth, where it loses its identity, and too rough when it's not practical. Removing the plaster that was filling a gap in the wood where a knot had fallen out, that filler was trying to hide the damage, but it also took away the character. So I'm taking it back out, letting the wood return to its original form. Now comes the longest part of the process, and honestly the most dramatic one: burning the wood with my trusted heat gun. This is where the transformation really begins. As the heat works across the surface, the grain gets darker, the texture becomes deeper, and the whole piece starts to develop a stronger presence. You will notice the glowing embers in the cracks. That is one of the reasons this step is so useful. It helps reach the dust and fine debris trapped inside the surface, especially in areas that are difficult to clean properly by hand. And there's another practical reason for doing this. Some of the outer bark and loose materials on the beam can become a problem later, especially for cleaning and long-term use. So this process is not just about appearance. It also helps make the final piece more usable for the person who will live with it. That matters. A lot of handmade pieces look interesting, but becomes irritating in real life. This one has to do both. It has to look good, and it has to be easier to maintain. As the burning continues, you can really see the wood changing. Some areas darken faster, some cracks hold the heat longer, some parts reveal a pattern that wasn't available before. That's what makes wood like this interesting. You can guide it, but you can't fully control it. And it's probably a good thing. If everything goes exactly to plan, it would start looking too manufactured. I lightly sand the surfaces to get rid of the ash once the burning is done. Just enough to remove the loosened bark and ash, soften the surface, and make the piece cleaner to handle. That final sanding is important, because this project is not trying to be rough for the sake of being rough. There is a difference between texture and just poor finishing. A lot of the people confuse the two. This piece needs to keep its raw character, but it still has to feel intentional. That's a line I'm trying to walk here. Not polished, not fake, but also not lazy. And once that balance starts to come together, and the lamp begins to feel less like an experiment and more like a finished object, you start to notice something here. The wood doesn't react evenly. Some areas darken quickly, while others take their time. The cracks hold the heat longer, and that's where the real texture begins to show. This is also where patience matters. If you rush this step, you can easily burn too much and lose the detail completely. So it's not about speed, it's about control, letting the heat work slowly and watching how the surface changes. You can see the grain becoming deeper, almost like it being carved out without actually cutting anything. And this is why I like this process, because you are not forcing the design, you are revealing it. Even the small imperfections start to look intentional at this stage. Now it's time to bring everything together. Each piece has its place. The base needs to be stable. The vertical piece needs to hold its weight. Because at the end of the day, it is not just art, it has to work, form, and function. The light, a simple Edison bulb, warm, soft, and calm. And as soon as it turns on, everything changes. The burn texture starts to glow, the shadow adds depth. It doesn't feel like scrap anymore. And that's the final result, from an old piece of wood to something completely new. Not perfect, but real. If you enjoy this kind of work, raw materials, simple tools, honest design, then stick around. There is a lot more coming.